I was gonna say haiku, dude.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The old pond. A frog leaps in. Sound of the water.
And that old frog on this fight card was probably fucking Anthony Smith. Hello and welcome to this week's UCF podcast. My name is Francis. I'm here with my co-host Clark, and we're breaking down UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura. And let's jump right into it, into this main event. I had done a specific prediction video for this fight, introducing Kai Asakura. In that video, I predicted that Pantoja was probably going to win and that his grappling would make the difference. Um, Based on the fact that Kai Asakura got taken down a lot in all of the tape that I watched, and I just didn't think that he was going to get those same chances to get up against a UFC champion that he did against, Rise in competition. And that's kind of just what went down. Kai gave a good account of himself in the first round. He did lose out in the striking against Pantoja, which was really just impressive from Pantoja. I feel like a lot of people forgot that Pantoja was able to outstrike Brandon Morono on the feet, and Brandon Royval. So that was really impressive from him. Probably the best moment that Kai had would have been a flying knee attempt early on that caught Pantoja in the chest and just barely missed his head, right? But round number 2, Pantoja immediately starts working for a takedown, jumps on Kai's back the second he has the opportunity to, locks up a choke and gets the tap. Really impressive performance by the Cannibal. He's starting to run into the same issue that Demetrius Johnson did back when he was champion at 125. What do you do when you really run out of good competition? Is he, he's already now beaten the Ryzen champion. Where are they going to find his next fight? We're going to have to wait a little while to see what happens at 125 pounds for a title challenger to kind of come out of the woodwork for us to shake things out and figure it out, because Morono just won his last fight. Well, he's already lost to Pantoja twice. Royval, I think, has already lost to Pantoja. He did, definitely. Manel Cap has already lost to Pantoja. Pantoja has washed the top of this division through already. Now, coming up on our last fight card of the year, next weekend's fight night, there are a couple flyweight fights to watch for potential prospects. But just going off of this title fight, it was fast. It was very impressive. Pantoja was sharp on the feet every second. He did get caught a couple of times, but against a guy like Kai Asakura, to take a few shots on the chin and it just doesn't bother you, that's impressive in and of itself. And then still, he landed at a higher accuracy than Asakura did anyways. Just very impressive from the Cannibal.
Yeah, type of fight that you love to see a little bit, honestly. This is a guy in his prime doing some of the best work he's ever going to do. Kai Asakura, obviously a step below, but I mean, this is a guy that isn't necessarily a pushover. But man, did Pantoja make him look like a little bit of a pushover in that fight. Just very dominant, very controlling when standing up, when sitting down. It was just a really impressive fight. And I guess, it's a reminder. Sometimes you get really good champions and they're champions for fucking ever as a result. Yeah.
Before that in the night,
whoa,
we had Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Ian Machado Gary. Rakhmonov has seen a judge's scorecard for the first time in his professional career.
You could see the fear in his eyes.
You really could. And we'll get to the fight itself. Ian Gary has, in interviews after this fight, come out and said, I feel like I'm still undefeated. Well, that's great, but your record and the reality is you have now lost a fight. And it's tough. It's tough for me to be too critical of Gary because he made Shavkat look the most human he has ever looked. Against guys like Jeff Neal, Shavkat was taking punches from one of the hardest punchers in the division and waiting forward and throwing elbows and body knees and just brutalizing the toughest guys in this division. So to watch him stand at distance with Ian Machado Gary and being as tentative as he was really surprising. I would say throughout this fight, Shavkat landed the better shots. A big left hand, I think, in round number 1. A nice spinning back kick somewhere in the middle of the fight. But those really impressive strikes were few and far between. And it seemed like Shavkat needed to be able to get his hands on Gary and needed to be able to get him to the mat to feel comfortable. Until he had that sort of like physicality figured out, he just couldn't get into his normal game plan. And the fact that Shavkat could not do that really does speak to the defensive abilities of Ian Machado Gary. Now, taking on MVP and not getting knocked out, pretty impressive, like just frankly speaking, especially for a guy like Gary who doesn't necessarily have power to keep a fighter off of him. He's much more reliant on technique, speed, and reflexes. But those skills were able to keep his butt off the mat for most of this fight. And the only time someone was actually in danger of being finished was when Gary got Shavkat's back and took his neck. Now, he was too high up on the back. Um, when Gary was actually trying to get that rear naked choke on Shavkat, put the picture up here of that moment. Wow, can you believe Gary almost, like, that's still on top of Shavkat's chin, but look how close that is. Gary's just a little bit too high on the back. Shavkat's head is almost in Gary's chest, but to really be able to get the torque on this choke, you want it almost to be like your face is next to their ear. That's how you're going to get the best leverage on that choke. So that's why he wasn't able to finish it, and he wasn't able to drive it under the chin. But that's the closest this fight came to being stopped. Gary didn't look bad, and he was able to defend takedowns that a lot of other guys in the division are just getting foot swept. They're just getting tripped, body lock and the trip, and now Shavkat's on top beating you up. Gary held that off for most of this fight. And if he just could have utilized his kicks a little bit more effectively and a little bit more often, and maybe just working off of a jab, it would have worked out a little bit better. But he had to be so careful of that threat of the takedown and the fact that if Shavkat catches him, the consequences are just more serious. I'm talking a lot about this fight. A lot of people are talking smack about Shavkat now because, oh, look, he couldn't even beat up Ian Gary. I'm sorry, these guys are both pretty good. And sometimes when you have two really good fighters, you get a tentative kind of gun-shy performance. I didn't like that from either of them. I wanted to see more output, but I've seen what both of these guys do to the rest of the division. This is not what we expected, but we do now have a pretty solid answer on who wins, and it's Shavkat.
Yeah, we know now because he won. Well,
Yeah.
Francis, with that all being said, Shavkat and Muhammad, who's going to do it? How's it going to go? Where's it going to go? In what location will it happen?
That's a great Abu Dhabi main event. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's on Yes Island next year.
Probably actually.
The thing is that this originally was supposed to be remember the name Muhammad versus Shavkat. Muhammad got injured. And actually, just a quick side note, after the fight, Muhammad wanted to get into the octagon to do a face-off with Shavkat, and security did not recognize him, and they stopped him for a while. They weren't letting him into the cage. Very funny. They did not remember the name. That having been said, when I watch fighters who can't pull the trigger, who are getting into these low output fights where you both have energy that you're not using because you're saving it for something, that perfect moment almost never comes. Like, very rarely you hit that perfect moment where you knock out a tough opponent who, and like, people can't believe you did it. You cracked the iron chin. Oh my God. But most of the time, making the best of a bad situation is what is going to win you a fight. And Muhammad is better at that, man. He's going to push the pace. And like, just from a horsepower perspective, if Shavkat and Muhammad lock up, I think Muhammad, Bilal has the strength advantage, I think. Now, it really just depends if Shavkat can keep Bilal at range and utilize his striking, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. That's why I was like asking about it,
Yeah.
I honestly think I would tend towards Bilal Muhammad winning, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to like sit on it for a bit, I guess, and think about it because it's inevitably gonna happen, obviously. So,
Yep. One last note is that Shavkat and Ian are former training partners, and that could be part of why they were so tentative. They knew what the other guy was going to do. If I do this, he's going to do that, and I have to watch out for that if he does this. So to some extent, this was like mind games, and you won't have that in a fight versus Bilal. But yeah, after this one, I am starting to lean more towards Bilal Muhammad. Um, but anyways, enough about that co-main event no one really liked. On to the decision nobody liked. Cyril Gahn, who we did both pick to win this fight,
I uh,
didn't actually win this fight, except the judges gave it to him. This it's just causing a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people talking about why are certain
why?
judges still employed. I guess that is one thing. I sent a specific judge's name to you that I've complained about previously, and there's a few well-known judges who do both big boxing events and mixed martial arts events, who have never trained in either of those sports, who get to make these big decisions. And there's not enough transparency with the athletics commissions telling us why these people are officiating the fights that they are. Why are they being given so many second chances on big fights when they've demonstrated they just don't understand the sport and they have no history with the sport? I'm not going to be naming judges by name today.
Why not?
Just kidding.
Scared.
Adelaine Bird. What?
Adelaide
Anyway,
turd.
that's right. So Bird is most famous for giving a really kind of wonky scorecard to Canelo in the Canelo Triple G fight. And people heavily suspected that that was some fight fixing going on. Now you have someone who's been with these athletic commissions forever now, and she's still handing in scorecards that make absolutely no sense. Now, I'm not going to speculate on why that's happening because I really don't know, but it's enormously disappointing. And Alexander Volkov he's not been one of my favorite fighters in a very long time. Like the last time I was really impressed by him was when he when he dealt with Verdum, I think, and he said jiu-jitsu doesn't really work anymore in MMA, which was funny. Because in this fight he resorted to a lot of grappling and there were some submission attempts. But the improvements that Alexander Volkov has made over the years is just tremendous, because in his first fight against Cyril Gahn, he didn't look good and he lost. But he has been fighting a who's who of who has been coming up at heavyweight, and he's been improving. He now has grappling. He did an entire strength and conditioning regimen ahead of this fight camp so that he would be more capable physically. He came into this fight camp with knee injuries. This fight was canceled and rebooked because he had mangled knees. And he goes out there and he outstrikes the faster fighter in Cyril Gahn. And the guy with more obvious athletic gifts, less size, because Alexander Volkov is enormous. He's made improvements, and it's obvious that he's worked very hard to improve his skills and his physicality in a division where most guys are just fat middleweights. And he's now punished by the judges for not getting a finish because he was up against the top of the heavyweight division, one of the few guys who's actually good. I was watching this fight thinking, you put almost any other two heavyweights into a grappling match, and I would rather watch paint dry. But these two guys were actually showing off some skills that I was surprised to see at heavyweight. And then you punish him with this decision. I'm super upset. A lot of people are upset, whatever.
Yeah.
The worst part is, what can you do? Because they're never going to appeal this. They're never going to overturn it. And
well, I hate to be the one who has to say it because someone has to, but the only way you'd ever get some sort of significant change on this is if people stopped, watching pay-per-views and fight nights and made it clear that the reason they were doing that was because they felt like the fights weren't fair because the judging was horseshit, and calling for more transparency, etc. You would need to actually organize people as like a group to do that coordinatedly. So the UFC knows when they see a dip in pay-per-views that's the reason why. Because as it stands right now, that's the only kind of power you have as a consumer, right? The obviously other thing would be fighters refusing to fight. But as it stands, I don't really think that's going to happen. Not for this particular issue. I agree. I mean, whatever. There are definitely arguments that could probably be made that Cyril Gahn won or whatever, right? I'm not even going to get into that necessarily because I do think that Volkov probably won. I was happy to see him do all this wrestling. I called it the preview video, yeah, you should just Jones him, just do the wrestling. And he did. He employed it very well. It was some impressive work. And I do think that should have garnered him the win in the end. And yeah, when it just comes, we bitch about judges all the time. I think every fucking UFC podcast, YouTube, any commentary at all bitches about judges. at some point something's going to actually have to change, and that's going to probably require some level of organization, either on the fighter's part or on the consumer's part. So I don't know, Francis. You want to start a hashtag?
I mean, people have tried that sort of thing. Just real quick to like go over a little bit more on what happened in this fight. Cyril Gahn allegedly broke his toe with the first kick he threw. It's always the first shot you throw. Oh, I broke it. And for the rest of the fight, that's why I performed so poorly. He did have x-rays of a broken toe, so he did break his toe somewhere in the fight. That absolutely would affect your performance, but injuries happen in the middle of the fight. You know, if he punches your jaw and it breaks, that's not an excuse for why you lost the fight. It's a part of fighting. You will be injured. It sucks. But Volkov, I think the most significant strike of this entire fight was a spinning back fist from Volkov that almost spun Gahn's head all the way around. And I will say Cyril Gahn might have one of the all-time best chins at heavyweight, because he's taken some shots from guys like Francis Ngannou and Volkov, and just eats it and continues on gamming, you know? So I enjoy Gahn. Gahn is one of my more preferred heavyweights to watch, because he's actually going to go after it. He's athletic. He's not like a plodding fat dude like I'm so critical of most of the heavyweight division. But he knew he didn't win this fight. This is my last thing, and then I'll quit being frustrated about this fight. But Cyril Gahn, when he heard the decision, walked out of the cage, and then his coaches convinced him to come back. He knew he did not win that fight. He was upset. Cyril Gahn is like, from what I've seen in interviews, seems like a decent dude. So to be put in that situation where, you know, you have to grit your teeth and be like, yeah, you know, I broke my toe. I didn't like my performance. Yeah, that sucks. Happy I got the win anyways. You know, like, man, it sucks for all parties involved. And then I lied. One more thing. Dana White claimed, like, he had a translator there to talk to Volkov after and said, oh, you got fucked, man. We'll try to make this right somehow. Okay, so what? Volkov is going to have a loss on his record that people 10 years from now are not going to look into that it was a robbery. So,
they'll look into it.
We'll
make sure of that.
We'll try to force them. Moving on to a better fight result. Bryce Mitchell knocks out Kron Gracie in what is the most satisfying way that I think he could. Kron Gracie's only plan in this fight was to pull guard and play a very slow and lazy bottom jiu-jitsu game. So anytime Bryce Mitchell came forward, Kron would grab him and jump up and just become like a baby carrier on the front of Bryce Mitchell and pull him down. And the last time that he did this, in round number 3, Bryce braced Kron's head, like got his forearm under Kron's chin, and as they fell forward, he smashed Kron's head into the mat and then followed up with like 2 or 3 elbows. Gracie was out cold. A very satisfying end to this fight. Bryce Mitchell ended up actually escaping a couple very dangerous submission attempts from Kron Gracie. I believe there was an armbar in there. He was working towards a triangle at one point. One of the tough things for a jiu-jitsu specialist today in the UFC is that if you just win jiu-jitsu competitions, I think it gives you a false sense of confidence. Much in the way that a boxer coming to the UFC just really can't even imagine what it's like to not be able to stand on your front leg for a jab because your calf has been destroyed. Can't imagine, to sit down on a punch is the mistake that loses you 5 minutes on your ass, right? The pure jiu-jitsu specialist cannot envision the scenario where the other guy just slams your head into the mat and that's not a penalty. And this is Kron Gracie's problem. He did not look good. I hope this is the last time we see him in the UFC. It's a good win for Bryce Mitchell, though.
Yeah.
Nice that he got some shine.
This one's not shocking, I don't think, at all. Bryce Mitchell really kind of controlled this whole fight. I do agree with you. It is a little shocking how many guys come into like MMA and they don't really seem to understand what the mixed part means. It's almost just moot to even say it, but if you're going to come in and you've only got one type of martial art background, you're probably going to want to throw some of that mixed in before you get into the octagon in front of a bunch of people and get your shit pushed in. But yeah, I mean, Bryce Mitchell looked pretty good. Kron Gracie did not look very good at all. And is that what? His has he won yet? Did he win the UFC
He
at all?
did. He did have a couple wins in the UFC, but now this is his third loss in a row
Okay.
over 5 years. Because
Oh
the last
God.
time he won was like 2018 or 2019,
My God. Yeah. So maybe we'll never see him again, and that'll be fine.
and that'll be fine. Before that, we got this fight wrong, and I'm okay with that.
I didn't make
Nate
any picks though,
Landwehr.
so
Oh, no picks. Nate Landwehr lost to Doo-Ho Choi, KO TKO on the mat. Doo-Ho Choi this year is with Dominic Reyes on the "we're fucking back" train. Choi was dealing with years of losses and injuries and setbacks. He got a knockout win earlier in the year over Bill Algeo. Algeo isn't that good, so I wasn't that impressed, but I was happy that Choi got a win. You know, the guy holds like a fight of the year fight from back in like 2015 or 2016. He's put on amazing shows. So many people remember the Korean Superboy because of the performances he put on. So coming out here against Nate Landwehr, I thought Landwehr is an animal dude. He's very physical. I don't know if Choi is going to get his moments to set up the perfect shot. Choi did not take his time to set up the perfect shot. He found Nate's guard and just hit it as hard as he could. And I don't think Landwehr was ready to get hit that hard. Choi must have his own strength and conditioning regiment he's on, because he also manhandled Nate anytime they locked up. And something I really was not expecting was takedowns from Doo-Ho Choi. He got 4 out of 5 takedowns in this one. And that's how this fight ended, was on the mat, him just beating the snot out of Nate Landwehr. Landwehr's like screaming too, because he just can't do anything. He's pinned. I think he might have even had him in a crucifix, and he's just punching away at Landwehr with one arm, having him pinned completely with the other arm and the rest of his body. Incredibly impressive performance from Doo-Ho Choi. Now, Choi is as old as Kron Gracie, so if he's gonna make a run of the title, it has to be it has to be this next year. 2025 has to be Doo-Ho Choi's year if he really wants to make something happen here. I don't know if he'll get it, but
there's hope. We see glimmers of hope
there
in the
there is
distance.
hope.
Dude, but like honestly, he was just mixing up so much different shit. Everything was executed very strongly, very consistently. I was like fucking shocked. I was sitting there like, holy shit, is this really Doo-Ho Choi? And like, I don't know, maybe now late Landwehr had the flu or something, but man, Choi was looking good. Honestly, I don't even know. It would be insane if he actually made a run at the title, but also like, fuck man, wouldn't that be sick as hell?
That'd be so crazy. To be close to 40 at one of the lighter divisions and getting, I mean, he's not even ranked yet, right? But still, we can dream.
Oh, he's getting there,
Um,
baby. Put all your money, bet the house, bet your children.
so a fight that was a little bit less inspirational, but
Oh
still
no.
happy for the winner. Dominic Reyes getting the win over Anthony Smith. Dominic the Devastator Reyes devastated Anthony Smith with unrelenting kind of pitter patter grounded pound. The striking numbers for this one are just frankly pathetic. I do want to give a little bit of leeway for Anthony Smith, because people are piling on this guy like you wouldn't believe. He's a UFC commentator, and so he's just had a lot more opportunities to put his foot in his mouth with the fans, with opponents. And in today's internet age, people are so quick to turn on a fighter. Well, I was talking enormous shit about Anthony Smith in the build up to this one. He's just it's so easy to pile on the guy, especially when he's losing but is still getting treated kind of with kids gloves because he's a commentator. But in the build up to this fight, I think it might have actually been fight week, he had his best friend and trainer die, and he still decided to sign and take the fight. Or he kept on the fight. He made weight. I had heard that he had said, my trainer would have said that if I didn't take this fight, I was making excuses. And on his walk up to the cage, he's crying. He's crying, and his coaches are trying to get him locked in and calmed down. Smith looked strong for the first quarter of round one, and then it just started to fall apart like it has been so often, and he starts to shell up. And round two, he spent pretty much the entire round shelled up against the cage, waiting for it to be called, getting elbowed by Dominic Reyes. Reyes looked good. He's faster. He's still his timing isn't right. I think that's the big issue with Dominic right now because he still has power, he still has speed, he's athletic. You can tell he's moving around that octagon a lot faster than most light heavyweights, but his timing just isn't there. So he's getting into these kind of awkward half ranges where he will get hit by guys who are more locked in than Anthony Smith. But against Smith, like he just was able to do pretty much whatever he wanted when he wanted, and the fight was over as soon as the ref, had seen 172 unanswered elbows or something.
This one was a little depressing. You could tell that Smith, he faced like any significant challenge at all, and he kind of just crumbled. You could tell in round 2, like there was nothing. There was no fight in him whatsoever. You honestly could have called round 2 like 10 seconds in or 30 seconds in. It doesn't matter when he called it. It was pretty much over from the second that he got hit in round 2. You could tell that his heart was not in it. Probably shouldn't have been in the ring. I mean, I can understand taking it. Obviously, that's what the coach probably would have wanted and all that, but man, I don't know. I don't think anyone would have really. I mean, I guess they probably would have, but I personally wouldn't have judged him too hard had he decided not to take this fight. Because I mean, I don't even know if you can say anything that good about Reyes. I mean, like a little bit for sure. He definitely looked as solid as you could look, but I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure I could have beaten up Anthony Smith in this fight, honestly.
Yeah, as soon as he realized you were going to punch back, it was kind of over.
Yeah.
It's really weird. When I was doing a little bit of checking in on news and research and flipping through records and stuff ahead of recording today, I noticed, I remembered actually, Anthony Smith won a fight this year. Back in like March, he beat an up and coming Brazilian guy. I think it's Vitor.
Wasn't it Petrino?
Yeah, Petrino. You're right.
I think.
He actually beat Petrino, who's not half bad. So if Smith can, he's very clearly getting gun shy, and there's an expression in fighting, in boxing, and MMA generally, and it's once a fighter is shot, there ain't no more charge in the chamber. The gun has been fired. It's done. And I'm starting to think Anthony Smith is shot. These last 2 performances were just really not impressive. He said he wasn't sure. He was going to think about whether or not he was going to retire after this fight. But it's been a lot, man. It's probably, you have a commentary job, and not every single UFC fighter can go be a coach afterwards, but Anthony Smith probably has that opportunity. And I think like just biting the bullet and making that decision, even now when it's already kind of you're past your prime and you should have probably made this call last year, it's better this year than next year, So
Yeah, you don't need any more CTE, man. You're not doing anything crazy anymore. You can probably get the bag elsewhere. I would recommend it.
Yeah. Before that, a less depressing fight. And this actually had me so excited. I picked Themba Gorimbo to win this fight based on recent performances from both of these guys. Vicente Luque said it perfectly in the post-fight interview. You guys forgot. You guys thought I was done. I'm not done. I'm back. He dropped Themba with pretty much the first punch that he hit him with, immediately jumped on Themba's neck. We are calling it an anaconda choke. It looked like a Darce, but subtle differences in those chokes, I guess. Luque had it locked up, and Themba was choked unconscious in a matter of seconds. He did not tap. He was unconscious. Super impressive from Luque. Getting a win over an up-and-coming guy like Themba is really impressive, especially after some of the losses he suffered, looking kind of gun-shy. This sort of a victory can give a guy back his confidence, and that's really what I think Luque needs to get back in this welterweight picture.
Yeah, dude, honestly, crazy. Gorimbo is a good fighter. No joke about it. So the fact that this is how his 4-win streak ended was kind of crazy. But Luque just fucking, I don't know. There's not even that much more to be said about it. He gets him, kind of rocks him, and then just jumps on the opportunity and just fucking tears his head off pretty much. It's a beauty.
Fucking beautiful.
Fucking beauty, dude.
Before that, Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. I wasn't really sure who won this fight when it ended. It was super close. Evloev got the win. This was a pretty good grappling match, and I was really impressed by Aljamain Sterling. Sterling, in round 1 and for portions of round 2, was out grappling the division's boogeyman in Movsar Evloev. Undefeated, crazy takedown capability. Handled Arnold Allen earlier, which was an impressive win. Um, Aljo has come up from 135 pounds after he lost the belt. He already dealt with Calvin Kattar, and he really just started to do the same thing to Mosbar. I now the one thing was that Mosbar was better in the scrambles. It seemed like legitimately Aljo was stronger, and he was getting after it much more. He was much more enthusiastic with his takedowns, really slamming Mosbar when he got the chance. But Mosbar found ways to get on top, found ways to get some ground and pound going in ways that Aljo did not. Aljo really wasn't able to open up with any sort of offense other than just the takedowns. An impressive match nonetheless between these guys. Mosbar getting that win. Aljo didn't come out of it looking that much worse. And at featherweight, there's a lot of guys I think he is going to be able to wrestle the fuck out of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Aljamain did look pretty strong, actually, which I was a little surprised by. I wasn't expecting that much of a strength differential. And in the end, I do think that Movsar won this fight relatively handily, but the fact that Aljamain was actually able to put up that much of a fight and there was a little bit of manhandling going on, I think that does kind of speak to his physical ability in this division. That, yeah, you could see that guy going up against some of the grapplers in the division and just fucking handling them, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, ultimately, like if this fight is just scored, the reason that I say I really wasn't sure who won this fight is because this fight very easily could have been scored for Aljamain Sterling, and I would not have been upset. But Evloev stays undefeated, moves forward at featherweight. Hopefully, Ilya Topuria just knocks him out, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed, baby.
Fingers crossed. Moving forward, this was another fight where I thought the judges got it wrong. Brian the Butcher Battle getting the win over Randy Rude Boy Brown. Randy Brown looked really impressive in this fight, and Brian Battle came in really heavy as well. This was 170 pounds, and Battle came in like 4 or 5 pounds heavy. Just in the striking numbers, and this doesn't tell you the whole story of the fight, but Brown outlanded Brian Battle in significant strikes, had higher accuracy, but in total strikes, Battle had the advantage. Battle went for 6 takedowns, did not get a single one. Randy Brown got 2 of 5, which was really impressive because that's not Brenda's bread and butter for a while, but he's been working at it. The issue here is that Battle ended up with 7.5 minutes of control time up against the cage. And maybe I'm just a salty fan sometimes when I see a guy stalling because, hey, this is entertainment. You're supposed to entertain me. Do something. Throwing rocks at the lions at the zoo. But Battle found positions where he was safe. He was not going to be on the feet. He was getting pieced up a little bit, especially at distance. He was not able to find Randy Brown in the way he's been able to find other guys. And when they locked up, Randy Brown was able to take him down more often than he was able to. So really leaning up against Brown on the fence and throwing knees and some elbows and stuff like that is all Battle was really able to do in this fight. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that negates really impressive takedowns. Like if you're slamming your opponent to the mat, that is like a big punch. That should at the very least be equal to a heavy punch. In equal measure, landing the better shots, and your opponent is very obviously unable to deal with you at range. I just have such a problem with us scoring, leaning against the fence so heavily. And maybe it's something that will eventually be changed, but the audience agreed. Everyone booed when Brian Battle got this win. Now, to Brian Battle's credit, he is taking the bad guy route. He played the heel in the post-fight interview and just went to the crowd like, who are you booing me? And just like kept egging them on to piss them off. And that's really the only appropriate response if you're going to be like, I don't fucking care. I got the win. Fuck you. That's a completely reasonable response and is much better than trying to be like, well, no, guys, we tried really hard. Like, you're never going to win that. Once the audience is booing, very unlikely you're going to win them over.
Yeah, so no, that's a tough to turn that one around for sure. I don't know. Everyone complains about the whole fence sitting thing, and for good reason, because I don't like it either. But I've said it before. It really is. It's just the rule. You know what I mean? as long as the rule allows them to do that, there are going to be fighters that are going to do that. Like if you're losing at range, I think it's going to be a really hard argument to tell that fighter, oh yeah, like you could like sit him up against the fence and try to knee him a whole bunch, or you could just get knocked out at range. Like which option do you think he's probably going to take? He's probably going to go up against the fence, stall out, try and knee him, maybe do some other cute shit if we're lucky. But unless the rule actually changes, or there's some rule that allows the refs to like break them up more easily or whatever, people are going to keep doing it because it's not going to, you're not going to be able to convince a person to let themselves get knocked out or let themselves get submitted because, I don't know, you think it's like lame. As long as the lame thing is technically allowed, they will do it.
You're absolutely right. And maybe this is just one of those things that we're going to have to wait for the average UFC fighter to learn how to deal with this effectively and get off the cage more often. It's just, another facet of the game that some guys are better at than others. But dude, in the meantime, this sucks.
Boo.
This is the age of lay and pray,
Brian Brittle.
Huh. Yeah, Battle definitely looked very limited in this fight, and just he started the fight really cocky too. I've liked Brian Battle in his UFC career thus far, and it's nice that he gets this win. He gets to maintain his momentum as a new guy in the division, but you got to get the weight on point. You can't be coming in heavy and then fucking around, leaning on the cage and not doing enough and still getting rewarded for it. Like eventually you're going to run into like JDM and knocked out. So I hope Battle can really lock in, get the weight under control, and maybe improve that striking at range because he looked really vulnerable against Randy Brown.
Sad.
Yeah. Moving on though. Well, speaking of sad, this fight card was kind of a yo-yo between hold up, this fight fucking rocks, and oh wow, this is kind of pathetic. This was on the this is kind of pathetic side of things. Eric Anders defeated drug addiction and won a TKO victory over Chris Weidman. Weidman knocked down Eric Anders early in the fight. Just a slip and a rip, a good punch, and he got him. But Chris Weidman basically lost this fight because he pulled for a guillotine, which is, guys win jumping that, don't be silly, jump that gilly. But the majority of the time, if you are over the weight of 155 pounds, do not invite your opponent to lay on you. Just don't do it. It's hard to get up. For some reason, you don't believe it's hard to get up, but it is. Do not jump the guillotine. Eric Anders just started pounding Chris Weidman for so long. It wasn't brutal. Weidman wasn't like about to go out. It's just at a certain point, at a certain number of unanswered strikes, the referee technically has to stop it. And that's what this was. If you're looking at the round 2 numbers, right, Weidman getting 3 of 10 strikes, Anders getting 51 of 79. That's pretty much all on the mat while just beating the shit out of Chris Weidman. Neither one of these guys looked any good. Weidman really should retire, but it is what it is.
It's just such like a stupid fight. I don't know, like what a blunder. You know what I mean? It's like when you're playing chess and you like accidentally blunder your fucking queen, and then it's just over. It's like you're a dumbass. At least it was a him though. Thank God.
Thank God. Before that, this fight panned out pretty much exactly as I envisioned. I didn't give a whole bunch when I was breaking this one down, other than I don't like how Cody Durden looks, but also that he punches his way into takedowns, but he doesn't have enough power to really be a threat while he's doing that. So if he can't keep the other guy on the mat and he can't back the guy up with punches, Durden falls apart. And Joshua Van has good takedown defense and loves to just throw counter punches while eating shots. And while that did get him knocked out earlier in the year, he came back and got a good win. And in this one, man, Joshua Van just beat the shit out of Cody Durden. Round 1, I would have given to Durden, but rounds 2 and 3, just absolutely Van ran away with it. And 2 of the judges are giving all 3 rounds to Joshua Van.
Yeah, I honestly
really impressive performance.
He's looking good, man. He's
yep.
I mean, yeah, not that much more to say. He's just he won the fight.
Really sharp counter punching, really nice boxing combinations, not afraid to get hit, mixes it into the body as well. You just love to see it.
You'll love to see it, baby. I don't know, Cody Durden, kind of sucks ass. Is that rude?
A
Is
little
that
bit,
rude for me
yeah.
to say that? But it's true.
He's man, zero physicality at flyweight, dude. You
It's like
just can't.
shocking.
Being fast isn't enough.
I
Everybody's
know
fast.
the number. Okay, I know like, oh, like 14. Who cares? Right? Like, that doesn't even really mean anything. But sometimes I see a guy like Cody Durden, and I'm like, get him out of there. Get that number out from beside his name.
Yeah, and they will, and they will.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So before that, we had Michael Chiesa versus Max Payne Griffin. I said Michael Chiesa sucks. I'm going to stand by that. And to Francis, the editor, while we continue talking, I just want you to play a montage of bad takedowns that Michael Chiesa attempted in this fight. Chiesa got 2 of 8 takedowns, and those 6 that he did not get often involved the saddest type of a failed takedown, which is where you miss your opponent's body. You duck in for a leg or his body, and he just sidesteps away, and you do not catch him. He doesn't have to sprawl. He doesn't have to fight for an underhook. He missed him.
The
Now,
UFC version of like just the fucking air ball in basketball where you don't even hit the rim.
Exactly. Me if I were to shoot a basketball ever. The output in this fight is also just incredibly low. I would like to pin this all on Michael Chiesa sucking and your opponent can't grapple and it took you forever to submit him. And that is true. But Max Griffin just didn't do anything. I really expected him to go for it more because Michael Chiesa is so slow and so hittable. And Griffin has some speed and some power. But I guess the threat of the takedown was too much. And by the end of round number 3, Griffin just had no answers. Chiesa finally got him down, got to the back, got the choke and the tap. It's a nice. This is one of the few like kind of fair wins on Chiesa's record in the last 5 or so years. So props to him. But there's some guys who get into that octagon and you can tell so obviously that they're afraid of getting hit. And Chiesa's one of those guys. And fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with the human character if you don't want to get hit. That's actually like regular human instincts.
Yeah, getting hit
properly.
hurts, man. It's kind of scary.
Avoid danger, but you have to be able to bite down on that mouth guard and go forward. And Chiesa is so tentative, man.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. This fight was
it was early
sleepy. It was early. No one was even in the stadium. It was fine, but it was kind of like a sleepy ass fight. Definitely take up power snooze if you see one of these two gentlemen in the octagon again.
I don't think we'll see Max Griffin again. But
we'll see him again.
Chiesa getting booked to be knocked out by a prospect in a
that is
an
true.
Apex event near you.
Yeah, dude, but Max Griffin, he's related to Peter Griffin, and we know him and Dana are good friends. So
that's right. Okay, so
Zoomer victory.
Zoomer victory.
Domination.
I didn't even really look at the height difference between these two guys when we were previewing the fight. And it sometimes it's just shocking to see how tall fighters are today versus how tall they were back in the day. Because Guida is from that era of like Frankie Edgar, when lightweights could be 5'5" or 5'4". They didn't all have to be like 6 foot tall, 5'10" to 6'2", being the now lightweight average height, right? So Chase Hooper was just towering over Guida. Guida couldn't even get in to catch Hooper, and this fight didn't make it out of round 1. It was a submission. It was an arm bar. Guida was storming around the cage after, making sure his arm wasn't broken. Apparently Dana White said, I hope Clay Guida retires. It's probably because Guida has a really good contract at this point. They have to pay him like $200,000 or $300,000 for a fight. Right? Like that's the flip side of, wow, I really hope Anthony Smith retires, except he's been in the UFC so long. His contract is now probably okay. And he's just not going to make that sort of money like doing anything else.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
But Clay Guida said he's not going to retire. We'll be back, he said in a post-fight message. This fight does nothing for really anyone. They may have booked this fight because these guys had a grappling match outside of the UFC that Chase Hooper won, and they're like, yeah, well, let's do it again.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, Hooper looked fucking crazy in this fight, but yeah, like Guida is not impressive enough that really even matters. But Hooper pretty much just like crawled all over him and just like fucking spidered on him repeatedly until he could get the armbar. It was kind of crazy, but outside of that, I'm not like super impressed because I'm pretty sure Gita would be in danger of that happening to him if he got into a fight at like a gas station. So
Yeah, it sucks because Clay Guida is one of those like legacy beloved UFC fighters, but
boomers,
that's
get him
right.
out of here, dude. Zoomer domination.
Oof. What? Oh, there was one last thing I was going to say about this. Oh, right. Earlier in the day, I was just going through the UFC all-time record stat list, and I do kind of hope Clay Guida retires because there's a GSP record that Clay Guida is the closest to breaking. So
Get him out of here.
retire, Guida, retire. He only needs like 15 minutes more control time to be the all-time leader in cage control time ever.
God.
GSP currently has the #1 spot. But
Fuck.
anyways, the very first fight of the evening went exactly as we predicted. That doesn't mean much because this one was pretty fucking obvious how it was going to go. Kennedy Nzechukwu, I still can't say his name. I'm sorry. He beat the fuck out of Bresky, knocked him out. Bresky sucks. I said it in the pre-fight. Kennedy is the proof that if you are a big light heavyweight, there is no reason to continue trying to make weight.
Yeah, just go up. Honestly, like
you're already more athletic than every heavyweight.
If you're like an average light heavyweight, like, oh, like, I don't know, I'm not that good. Like, literally just go up. You have more athleticism. You've got probably just more everything on average than the bottom of the heavyweight division. Just go in there and win like three fights in a row. Do it now. Do it today.
I mean, actually, Anthony Smith's #1 chance at redemption, go up another. You know, he started out at 170 pounds in the UFC.
Is that true?
Yeah. And then he went up to 185 and then 205. So really,
sounds like me.
Moving, yeah, right. That's my progression from the start of December to the end. But yeah, I don't know. Heavyweight is so shallow. Most of the guys at heavyweight suck so bad. There's a number of names. Actually, stay tuned because I like that idea so much. Stay tuned for a short video. A video breaking down the list of UFC light heavyweights who should just go up to heavyweight and dominate because there's a good chance any one of them could get to the top 5. But this has been UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura. Key takeaways: the cannibal is very impressive. Shavkat looked human, but that might just be because Gary is pretty good. Luque is back.
Judges
continues to be back. Dooho Choi continues to be back.
Kill all judges.
Kill all judges. They are terrible. And watch out for Joshua Van. And one last thing as well. No preview video for the next fight card, but I do just want to mention, pay attention to the flyweight bouts because flyweight is wide open. We don't have a #1 contender, and the UFC wants people to fight Pantoja because that is a pay-per-view main event that they can book. So they're going to be pushing some of these 125-pounder guys pretty soon. And this next fight card has 2 flyweight bouts that could have title implications after 1 or 2 more fights out of the victor. So little convoluted, but flyweight is getting good. That's what I'm saying.
Could be.
All right. Well, thanks for
tuning in. We'll see you next time. I guess we're not doing a preview video, so we got one more before the end of the year. Our Christmas fight night recap is coming up. Yeah, we're gonna put like jingle bells on in the background.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Fuck you.